But first, Senator Lidia Thorpe did us all a huge favour today by quitting the Greens. The mask is now off and the real game with the voice exposed. Now, Thorpe wants apartheid, just like I've warned for years. Many activists do, and she's recruiting what she calls warriors to get it, the kind of haters she rallied at a protest against Australia Day.
This country has a strong grassroots black sovereign movement full of staunch and committed warriors, and I want to represent that movement fully in this parliament. It has become clear to me that I can't do that from within the Greens. Now I will be able to speak freely on all issues from a sovereign perspective.
Now for Thorpe, the problem with Labor's plan for a kind of Aboriginal-only parliament called The Voice, it's not that it goes too far, it doesn't go far enough. And she reckons the Greens are sellouts for backing it. So she will now become the leader of a new front in the so-called reconciliation movement. The demand is now being raised from, how about this Voice, advisory kind of parliament, to a treaty and to sovereignty. Now, Thorpe has actually done us a favour by making clear what Labor won't, because it's scared of frightening you, I guess. Labor's voice to Parliament is a con. Now, Labor's going around saying, look, don't worry, vote for this Voice in the referendum later this year, vote for it, because it's really harmless, it's going to have no power. It's just there to advise. And I say a con, because if you tell Aborigines they are so different and so oppressed that they, unlike any other race, must have their own advisory parliament, how can you then tell them, well, that said, your new parliament is not going to have any real power? Most activists will never accept that. It's a trick. And Thorpe has now called it out. She's quit the Greens. She's demanding what she says is sovereignty. What I say is actually apartheid, same deal. Because that's the real agenda of so many who do not want this race war to end. Now, of course, Labor's going to be furious because, for one, that's going to be one less vote for their plan in the Senate unless they buy off Thorpe with massive concessions. And she made clear today she was for sale on that front. But they'll be most angry that she's exposed why their voice is so dangerous. Now, just yesterday, on the ABC, one of the key architects of this Voice, Professor Megan Davis, said, well, it should in fact, far from being powerless, it should in fact have the power to go tell our bureaucrats what to do.
If we don't have a voice to the bureaucracy, then we're going to have the status quo, which is public servants making decisions about us from Canberra.
And today, Senator Pat Dodson, Labor's envoy for reconciliation, I should always put that in little quote marks, went even further, saying that this unelected voice should even sit in the national cabinet of premiers and the Prime Minister, telling them what to do. So who from the Voice is there? Like their unofficial Prime Minister? I mean, and let me remind you of something that Linda Burney let slip to me before she became our Indigenous Australians Minister. I took her to see exactly the kind of sovereignty that Lidia Thorpe is today demanding. I took her to one of the Aboriginal groups that have already declared sovereignty of territory around Cairns. It's called the so-called Yidinji Tribal Nation, which has appointed its own Prime Minister and its Foreign Minister and issues passes to visitors. Now, your Indigenous Australians Minister, Linda Burney, said back then she liked that. She approved.
I consider you a fellow citizen, a fellow human being. I don't know why there needs to be some sort of legal separation between you and me. We're only to pass just to come and talk to you.
Well, it's a government.
Fascinating exercise. Yeah, I do approve of it.
When will the penny drop? Now, a lot of Australians now are thinking, well, what's wrong with the Voice? It's got to be harmless. The Prime Minister tells me so. Isn't it just about letting Aborigines have a say in what affects them? And I'm saying, wait a minute. You know, of course, that Aborigines already have a voice, like everyone. They can vote in our elections. In fact, they have 11 MPs already in federal parliament who identify as Aboriginal. How about that? And they've already Oh, they're already being consulted more than people of any other race. You've got more than 30 Aboriginal land councils. You've got more than, 2,700 Aboriginal corporations. You've got at least 70 or so big Aboriginal lobby groups. You've got a Prime Minister's Advisory Council on it go. So why exactly this voice as well? Haven't you wondered why? Well, simple. Putting this voice in the Constitution, for one, means it can never be scrapped. More importantly, for the first time, our Constitution is going to divide Australians by race specifically and give one race more rights than all the others. Seriously? And to do that, it's preaching a racist lie that we Australians are so different, some of us, that Aborigines, for one, must forever be divided from the rest because they are owed more. And this is going to be an incitement to race hate. Lidia Thorpe already proves it. In fact, it shames Greens leader Adam Bandt that Thorpe today dumped the Greens. The Greens did not dump her.
I'm truly sad to see her leave the Greens. Senator Thorpe leaves the Greens with an enormous amount of respect. She is a fighter for her people.
I say Bandt is shamed because look how Thorpe has already abused police officers at a protest, many of them women.
What? Criminals? What? You are the only criminals on this land.
Look what she tweeted when protesters, most Aboriginal, burnt the doors of the old Parliament House. She jeered, "Seems like the colonial system is burning down. Happy New Year, everyone." There was a mockery too of the Queen when supposedly swearing an oath of allegiance.
I will be faithful and I bear true allegiance to the colonising Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Then there's Thorpe's promotion of dangerously inflammatory falsehoods, falsely accusing prison warders of committing genocide, of Aborigines in jail, of killing them, falsely accusing Australians of having buried Aboriginal children in sand and competed to kick off their heads. And on the day of mourning for the Queen, wiping her hands, covered with fake blood on the Australian flag. Now this is the road we're on with Labor's plan for a voice. I know we do get Australians who mean so well, telling us how sweet it will all be if we do just agree to Labor's voice. Angels will sing hosannas. I mean, just this morning, the Minister of St Paul's in Canberra, where politicians go to mark the opening each year of Parliament, today preached politics at them. I mean, how arrogant she was. What an abuse of her power. She preached politics at them, urging a vote for the voice. But when you listen to her, it's all mysticism. It is no engagement at all with the practical realities or the kind of mayhem, for instance, we now see on the streets in Alice Springs.
I think that the refusal to integrate, to be reconciled at the level of the heart, the wounds of our past, diminishes us all. And there's a kind of sense in which we can't quite move on together until we've embraced this more holistic way of being.
Well, I hope that Minister watched Lidia Thorpe today. I hope all Australians did. Did you see any reconciliation at all? No, they would have seen instead what is coming with this campaign for the voice. It's not warm hugs and sweet reconciliation, but the hard and bitter division of race.